Most riders chase loud, shiny, or flashy, but the smartest upgrades? They're quiet, hidden, and they work. We're talking about the mods no one shows off on Instagram, but that make your bike run smoother, last longer, or stop being a pain in the ass to live with. These aren't for flexing, they're for riding. Let's get into the secret mods that actually matter, even if no one else notices. Number 1. Throttle Cable Pulley Spacer. Fixes sticky throttle for good. Ever feel like your throttle gets a little stiff or slow to snap back after a long ride? Maybe it's not the cable. Maybe it's the angle. Most riders don't realize that on some bikes, especially older ones or those with aftermarket bars, the throttle cable routing gets slightly kinked at the throttle body or carb pulley. Enter the Throttle Cable Pulley Spacer. It's a tiny washer or shim that changes the angle of the throttle cable entry just enough to smooth out its path. That small tweak reduces friction, improves return spring function, and gets rid of that weird, sticky throttle feel without needing new cables or lube baths every week. It's one of those mods that no one ever mentions because it's so specific. But once you install it, the throttle snaps back like it should, and slow speed riding or blipping the throttle becomes way smoother. Especially useful if you've changed bar height, swapped grips, or messed with routing during a service. You won't see it, you won't think about it, but your right hand will know the difference every single mile. Best part? It costs less than your last gas station snack. Number 2. Clutch Cable Boot Clamp. Stops water from wrecking your clutch. You know that little rubber boot at the end of your clutch cable? The one that's supposed to keep water and dirt out of the cable housing. Yeah, most of the time it's loose, cracked, or just flapping in the wind doing absolutely nothing. That's where a simple clutch cable boot clamp makes a huge difference. It's a tiny ring or zip tie style collar that secures that rubber boot tight to the perch or cable end, sealing it off so moisture doesn't creep in and turn your clutch pull into a gritty mess. Why does this matter? Well, because water in your cable equals corrosion. Corrosion equals drag. Drag equals harder pulls, premature cable wear, and in the worst case scenario, snap. You're now stranded because a 10-cent boot didn't do its job. The smart fix is sealing it properly. You can even add a little waterproof grease inside the boot before clamping it down, creating a barrier that repels water and keeps things smooth for years. It's one of those, "why didn't I do this sooner?" upgrades. Invisible from the outside, but your left hand will thank you every time you pull the lever. And if you ever had a clutch cable snap in traffic, you already know how valuable this one is. Number 3. Nylon Chain Slider Block. Saves your swing arm from grinding to death. Most people think about chains, sprockets, and oil, but they forget the one part that quietly suffers every mile: the swing arm chain slider. That little block of plastic where your chain passes over the swing arm, it's not just cosmetic. It's the only thing standing between your swing arm and a high-speed metal saw. And here's the kicker. On a lot of bikes, that factory slider is junk. Cheap rubber or soft plastic that wears out fast, especially if your chain tension isn't perfect. Let it go too long, and you start chewing right into the aluminum, turning your swing arm into scrap. That's where a high-density nylon chain slider block comes in. It's an upgraded version made from tougher, longer-wearing material, often the same stuff used on dirt bikes and endurance machines. You bolt it on, forget about it, and your chain quietly glides over it without grinding into your frame. Not only does it protect your bike, it also helps reduce chain slap noise and makes your rear suspension movement smoother. Especially if you ride hard, commute daily, or just want peace of mind that your expensive parts aren't getting sanded down 1 mile at a time. Nobody sees it, nobody mentions it, but it's one of those mods that quietly saves you hundreds, maybe thousands down the line. Especially if you actually, ride your bike and not just pose next to it. Number 4. Steering Stem Grease Zerk. Maintenance without the hassle. Greasing your steering stem bearings is one of those maintenance jobs that everybody forgets until the front end starts feeling notchy, vague, or straight up dangerous. But the factory setup? It's a nightmare. You gotta pull the bars, maybe the top triple, and then awkwardly pack grease into places you can barely reach. That's where installing a tiny grease Zerk fitting in the steering stem becomes a genius move. It's a little permanent mod, just a drilled and tapped hole in the stem with a Zerk nipple that lets you shoot fresh grease straight into the bearings with a grease gun. No disassembly, no cursing, no delay. Just pump, wipe, done. It's the kind of thing shops should do from the factory, but they don't. And if you ride in the rain, dirt, or anywhere that isn't showroom floor clean, those bearings need love more often than you think. Best part? Once it's in, you can refresh your steering head grease in 30 seconds flat. No more putting it off because it's a pain. No more crunchy bearings ruining your handling. It's one of the smartest, least sexy mods you can do. And it's a total game changer for long-term reliability, especially if you like to keep your bike riding like new, not just looking like it. Number 5. Heat shield tape behind the side panels. Stops melted plastics and fried legs. If you've ever ridden a bike with high pipes or a tight engine bay, you know the feeling. Roasted thighs, toasted wiring, or side panels that slowly bubble and warp from heat soak. Some bikes are just built hot, especially if they got minimal bodywork or the exhaust snakes under the seat. That's where adhesive heat shield tape becomes a silent hero. We're talking about real thermal barrier tape, the stuff with an aluminum outer layer and fiberglass backing. Stick it to the inside of your side panels, under your seat, or even directly on the frame sections near the exhaust or engine. It reflects heat away from sensitive parts, keeps plastics from deforming, and protects your legs from turning medium rare on summer rides. It's not a fashion mod, hell, it's not even visible. But it buys you lower panel temps, happier electronics, and a much more comfortable ride. Especially if you run an aftermarket exhaust, tune-rich air fuel maps, or live somewhere that sees triple-digit summers. No wiring fires, no melted battery covers, no cooked thighs. Just a cooler bike and a smarter rider. Number 6. Shock preload collar saver, because threads aren't indestructible. Most riders never touch their rear shock preload, and the few that do, they grab a hammer and a punch, whack the collar like it owes them money, and wonder why the threads look like they've been chewed by a raccoon. Enter the preload collar saver, a simple nylon or aluminum ring that slips between the shock body and the preload collar. It acts like a buffer, reducing metal-on-metal grinding and making it way easier to turn that collar without wrecking your shock threads. Here's why it matters. Once those threads get notched, you're done. The collar binds, won't adjust properly, and suddenly your suspension's stuck at whatever the factory thought was good enough. With the collar saver in place, everything moves smoother. You get cleaner adjustments, less effort, and no long-term damage. It also helps prevent water and grit from seizing things up in the first place. If you've got a high-end aftermarket shock, this is cheap insurance. And if you're still rocking the stock unit, this might be the only way you ever get preloads set correctly without a hammer, a busted knuckle, or a call to customer service. Number 7. Helmet lock extension bracket, so you'll actually use it. You know that little helmet lock on your bike? The one buried somewhere under the seat behind the frame, or basically inside your rear tire. Yeah, nobody uses it because getting your D-ring in there is like threading a needle behind your back. That's why a simple helmet lock extension bracket is one of the smartest mods you'll ever install. It's just a short, solid metal arm that repositions your helmet lock to a place you can actually reach, like under the tail section, near your license plate, or even behind the passenger peg bracket. Some even let you move it entirely to the bar ends or crash cage for convenience. No more struggling with keys while balancing your helmet on one finger. No more skipping the lock entirely and bringing your lid into the gas station like a dork. And if you use cable-style lock instead, the bracket becomes the perfect anchor point. It's one of those mods that makes you actually use the security feature your bike came with, but never made practical. And bonus, it stops you from leaving your helmet dangling off your mirror like a rookie. Number 8. Adjustable clutch switch delay for smoother low-speed shifting. Most riders don't even realize their clutch lever has a tiny switch behind it. It's there for safety, so the bike knows when the clutch is pulled in for starting or shifting logic. But on some bikes, that switch is triggered way too early or too late, which can mess with throttle cutoff, quick shifters, or even idle behavior during low-speed maneuvers. Enter the adjustable clutch switch delay, a niche but incredibly clever mod. It's a small inline module or repositionable sensor bracket that lets you fine-tune when the ECU sees the clutch is engaged. Adjust it right, and you can eliminate jerky on-off throttle behavior, reduce stalling in traffic, and even improve the feel of quick shifters or slipper clutches. On ride-by-wire bikes, this matters a lot. That tiny switch signal can affect how the ECU handles engine braking and fuel delivery. Get it wrong, and your bike surges or bogs. Get it right, and everything feels buttery smooth. It's not common, it's not flashy, but if you ride technical roads, split lanes, or want precision from your controls, it's the kind of tweak that transforms the way your bike responds. And once you feel the difference, you'll never go back. Number 9. Frame Plug Kit. Stops rust, rot, and road grime. Most motorcycle frames have open tube ends, those hollow little circles at the end to swing arm pivots, subframes, or even the neck of the main frame. Ever wonder what's getting in there while you ride? Answer? Dirt, water, salt, dead bugs, and whatever garbage the road kicks up. A frame plug kit is one of those dead simple mods that fixes a surprisingly stupid factory oversight. You pop in a set of rubber or machine plugs that cap off those open holes, sealing out moisture and debris that otherwise would sit there and slowly corrode your frame from the inside out. It's like putting stoppers in the bottom of a ship. Nobody sees it, but you're preventing silent, long-term damage that eats away at resale value and structural integrity. Some plug kits are universal rubber grommets. Others are model-specific and match the paint or finish of your frame. Either way, they keep your bike looking clean, stopping rust in its tracks, and making detailing easier because your Q-tips won't be digging grease out of mystery holes anymore. It's one of the most overlooked protections you can add, and probably the cheapest mod that might save your frame from looking like a swamp pipe 5 years from now. Number 10. Cooling fan manual override switch, because heat happens when you're not moving. Here's a fun little secret. Your bike's cooling fan only kicks on after it's already hot. Most stock setups wait until engine temps climb near the danger zone before flipping the fan on, because manufacturers care more about emissions and noise than your comfort or your head gasket. But what if you could choose when that fan kicks on? That's exactly what a manual fan override switch does. Wire it to your radiator fan circuit and you get a simple on-off toggle, so when you're stuck in traffic, crawling trails, or idling on a hot day, you can turn on the fan before temps climb into meltdown mode. It's especially useful on bikes that run hot from the factory, like big ADV twins, sport bikes with cramped bodywork, or any ride with a tuned ECU and high compression setup. You get to control the heat, not just react to it. Bonus, it's a lifesaver if your temp sensor or fan relay ever fails. Instead of watching your coolant boil over, you flip a switch and keep riding. It's cheap, it's smart, and it gives you way more control over your engine's well-being, especially when Mother Nature's trying to cook it. Number 11. Clutch cover guard, because dropping it shouldn't mean rebuilding it. Most riders obsess over frame sliders or engine guards, but forget the one part that sticks out just far enough to ruin your day with a parking lot tip over: the clutch cover. On many bikes, especially sport bikes and naked models, the clutch cover is a thin cast aluminum piece that sits right at shin height. One dumb fall and you've got a cracked case, leaking oil, and a ride that's instantly over. That's where a clutch cover guard earns its keep. It's a bolt-on metal or composite plate that protects the side of your engine from impact. Some are full wraps, some are simple sliders, but they all do one thing: stop your engine from bleeding out if gravity wins. Even if you never drop the bike, it's cheap insurance. Off-roaders and ADV riders already know this, which is why nearly every dual sport comes armored up from the factory. But on road bikes, most people never think about it until it's too late. It won't make your bike faster, it won't win you likes, but it might just save your weekend ride from turning into a driveway oil spill. And for the cost of a takeout dinner, that's a no-brainer. Number 12. Swing arm thread repair inserts, because once it's stripped, you're screwed. You ever go to install swing arm spools and realize the threads are already half stripped from the factory, or worse, from the last owner's Gorilla tightening? Welcome to the world of soft aluminum and bad torque decisions. That's why swing arm thread repair inserts are one of those secret mods that seasoned riders swear by. These little helicoil inserts let you restore or even upgrade damaged threads in your swing arm, shock mounts, engine covers, or anywhere soft aluminum gets abused. You drill, tap, and install a hardened steel thread coil that brings the mount back to life stronger than new. And here's the kicker: some riders do it preemptively. They know those threads will eventually strip, so they upgrade to inserts before it ever becomes a crisis. This one's especially smart if you run a rear stand regularly, tow your bike, or swap rear wheels often. That constant torque on those tiny bolts adds up, and once they go, you're looking at welding, retapping, or hunting for a new swing arm. With a proper insert in place, you torque it confidently and move on. It's not glamorous, but it's a permanent fix to a dumb problem that ruins bikes every day. Number 13. Remote idle adjuster, because hot and cold aren't the same bike. Ever start your bike on a cold morning and it dies at every stoplight? Then later, once it's hot, the idle shoots up to 2,000 RPM and sounds like it's trying to take off? That's the joy of fixed idle screws on older bikes, or poorly tuned ones. A remote idle adjuster is the fix you never knew you needed. Instead of fumbling with a flathead screwdriver next to a boiling hot engine, this mod gives you a cable-mounted knob, usually routed under the tank or next to the frame, so you can fine-tune your idle on the fly. Too low? Give it a quarter turn. Too high once you're warm? Dial it back. All without burning your knuckles or pulling over. This is a godsend for carbureted bikes, dual sports, and customs with finicky fueling. But even some fuel-injected bikes with adjustable idle can benefit from a cleaner, safer adjustment method. It also lets you tweak your idle to suit riding conditions, like bumping it up a hair for low-speed trail riding, or dialing it down for smoother engine braking on the street. You'd think every bike would have this by default, but until that day comes, this $20 mod does the job perfectly, and makes your bike way less temperamental in real-world use. You'll notice none of these were chrome skull mirrors or $600 titanium bolts, because smart riders don't mod to impress, they mod to improve. The best upgrades don't scream for attention. They just make every ride smoother, safer, and less of a hassle. The kind of mods that say, I ride a lot, and I've figured out what actually matters. So, now it's your turn. What's the one hidden mod on your bike that no one notices, but you'd never ride without? Drop it in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more upgrades that actually do something. Ride smart, mod smarter.